Yeah, greetings and thanks again. All right, I talked about how we made the amps, and I talked about how we built the shop in which we did make the amps. Let me tell you a bit about how we ran the business because it's quirky as anything could be. Um, we sort of invented it as we went along because what do we know? We're just a couple of starving, literally starving young people, my wife and me. In fact, we were living on zucchini and fruit. We had a deal with a guy at the supermarket. There was a posh Marin County supermarket, and the guy would put the bruised fruit in a certain corner of the dumpster, and we would go get it because it was fine. You know, peach with a bruise, no big deal. Don't eat the bruise. Uh, so here's, excuse me, here's how we ran the business. We had orders, and the way we organized it was you needed to send in a $150 deposit, and that got you on the waiting list, and you needed to specify what you wanted us to build. And here's how that worked. You started with the basic, what we call the Super 60, which was the high gain. Basically, it became the Mark I preamp, although we didn't call it that. It was just a boogie amp without reverb. And then we had this menu included all these options that were available in any combination. So you could add the reverb or not. You could add the graphic equalizer or not. You could upgrade it to 100 watts or not. Export transformer with the all-world switch on the back or not. Hardwood cabinet or vinyl, black or cream, or a head. Um, and of course a road case if you wanted that. So literally, we had the sheet of paper, and it would have the name on it in there, Bob Jones, Hun Regraph, and you would just check off each box. So, but that was Bob Jones's amp before Bob Jones even got built. He ordered. That's what he ordered. Maybe another guy ordered a 60 Re. That was always a favorite of mine. That was a cool amp. Some guys would order a Hun Graph. Now that is a brutal amplifier. But at any rate, you could order whatever you want. And when the time approached, when you were about 4 weeks out, which is about when we would start building your amp, we would contact the customer and say, hey, you need to send in your balance, and the price depended on what you ordered. As I recall, and I could be way off base, help me, some of you guys have still got these old price lists. I think it was $600 for the Super 60, and then each feature was $75 additional. So if you ordered everything, it'd come up to $800 or $900, maybe. I'm not sure. Arithmetic was never my best suit. And of course, if the person didn't have the money for whatever reason, we would hold this place. That didn't happen that often. These guys were great. And again, I cannot thank these early customers, musician players, adequately because it wouldn't have worked without you. Now, I did have two founding principles, and this is why it worked. Principle number one, make the best possible with no excuses. Principle number two, the golden rule, treat each and every person the way you yourself would like to be treated. So, now, where did I come up with that first idea? Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to back up here even further because this is how I got initially interested in electronics. Had to do with Boy Scouts when I was about 10, 11 years old, and the troop was going to give this award for the kid that got the most merit badges over this summer. And I was in a tie with this other guy, and a third friend said, hey, just get wood carving. It's the easiest thing. You just carve three things. That's it. You get it. So I did that, carved three things, and I went over to the, what do they call it, the merit badge counselor's house. And immediately it was kind of weird because he said, come to the garage. Well, the garage was boarded up. And I looked, and I could see this little seam where actually it was a man door. So I hesitantly knocked on the door, and eventually he came and opened it. Big, tall guy, ex-Marine, and he looked like Clint Eastwood, tough as nails. He glowered down at me, and I sheepishly handed him my three carvings, and he said, follow me. So we go into his garage, which is turned into this spacecraft shop as far as I'm concerned. I've never seen anything like this. It wasn't a garage for cars. It was a machine shop, an electronics shop. And he walks me over and he said, "This is a bandsaw. Let me show you how it works." He flips on the bandsaw. He takes my 3 carvings, stacks them up. He looks at me, drives them through one way, turns them 90 degrees, drives them the other way through the saw, tosses them in the trash barrel, shuts off the saw, brushes his hands off, gives me the death ray look and said, "If that's the best you can do, you're either hopeless or you didn't try very hard." Well, he was right. He was right about the second part. I hope I wasn't hopeless, but I was a punk. I didn't know nothing. I was just taking the easy way out, right? 3 carvings. Oh, very good, Sonny. There you go. Here's your mirror. No, not this guy. Man, this was a life lesson that I never forgot. He said, "If this is the best you can do, you're hopeless." And it was like, well, I don't want to be hopeless. But man, I'll tell you, my ego was busted down to the thickness of that oil stain on his driveway at that point. And did I get the badge? No. I worked in that guy's shop for weeks, sweeping up, learning how to sharpen all his tools, learning how and carving a bunch of stuff, and learning how to hang with a real craftsman. And when the time was finally up, or I was running out of summer, and I said, "Mr. Stilson, about that merit badge," and he grabbed a stool and he said, "You sit right here and think about the way you were when you came here." And then he walked away and left for 20 minutes. He came back later, 20 minutes later, and he said, "Well, tell me whether you think you earned that merit badge." And I thought, earned, right, that's the word, not give it to me. Did I earn it? And with some misgivings, I must say. I said, well, no, I was a punk jerk. But I said, I think I earned it. Tell me. And he said, "You did." And so he gave it to me. But here's where it got into electronics. This guy was so heavy. What he was working on there was the heating, air conditioning control panel for the USS Nautilus, our first nuclear submarine. The guy was building this in his garage shop. And I looked at it, and I didn't know what I was looking at, but I knew it was beautiful and it was magical. And I thought, this guy's a combination of Leonardo for the art and Merlin for the fact that obviously it's got to work. And man, I wanted to do that. And I didn't even care if it didn't work. To me, this was an art form to get the wires and the parts and the density and the distribution of it was industrial beauty as far as I was concerned. Now, where I got lucky was his son, 4 years older than me, was starting to build ham radio gear, starting with transmitters. And I said, okay, that's what I want to do. So we became really good friends. And we were able to use the shop to, fabricate chassis, punch the holes for the tube sockets, and, wire up a basic transmitter and so forth. I went and got my novice license, learned Morse code in order to pass it, took the bus into San Francisco to the FCC to take the test and blah, blah, blah. And I tell you what, there was a lot of satisfaction when that transmitter finally worked. It took a long time to get it to actually work. And my buddies in the local area could hear my signal fine, Morse code, but nobody else could. And finally, I got this letter from the FCC in Alaska saying, "You're coming in loud and clear on an unauthorized amateur frequency. What the fuck is going wrong? You better fix it and tell us what you did and how you fixed it." At any rate, turned out I had tapped my tuning coil that hand wound from the wrong end, and so I got that straightened out. And later on I got the general license, which allows you to build a modulator and actually speak to other hams around. Now, again, we're talking 1959, 58, and in that era. But that wasn't quite as thrilling as the early Morse code, when I'd send my code out into the ether of space and then listen and hope, amongst all the noise, that you'd hear this faint reply in Morse code that would be my ID, which was WA6KUV. And so that's how I had this basic experience that enabled me to fix that Sun 200S, where Dave Kessner, said, man, nobody can fix it. Everybody's playing in bands and nobody can fix it and repair this stuff. Oh man, it was really good fortune. Great fortune. Okay, ladies, gentlemen, musicians, friends, again, thank you all so much. This is really fun to go down, and I've gotten a lot of replies, and they're all wonderful to hear from you guys. So keep it up. Thank you very much. See you next time.